All right, so let's jump in to this presentation about Ischia. I'm going to share my screen and always hope I can do this successfully. All right. Can you see my screen? You can see my screen. All right. If there's any trouble at any point, just pipe up in the chat and let me know. So, Ischia is a place that I have done, I think, 3 podcasts about. I constantly recommend and usually offer it as an alternative to the very crazy Amalfi Coast or Capri for the kind of traveler who is really looking for a more normal experience. No, Bina, I can't make the screen wider. It's set by Substack. That's yeah, I don't have any control over that. Um, and it really has that look that people want when they want the Amalfi Coast. But it just doesn't photograph that way because it's much more spread out. It's very green in the interior, but you do have those colorful pastel houses. You do have that Mediterranean atmosphere. I always tell people to watch the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley, the one in particular that was made in the late 90s with Jude Law and Matt Damon, for scenes that were shot in Ischia. If you want that Amalfi Coast vibe, but you don't want crazy crowds and you don't want to spend a fortune, Ischia is absolutely the solution. But it doesn't always look like that in pictures, and including this one. And took this picture. I remember very well what it felt like to be there, but the picture just does not capture how it feels at all. Um, I think all of you know me, but for anyone who doesn't, or somebody maybe who's just joined this community or will join it later, this is my background. I studied the Italian Renaissance in Florence, but focused later on Naples, where my family roots are. And you know all the rest. I don't need to explain all this stuff. Let's jump right into taking a look at Ischia. So first of all, Ischia is very easy to get to. You get there from Naples and you take a ferry. So you have to go to the port of the port of Naples, Bevarello, which is the main one where you also have the giant cruise ships coming in, and you also have the ferries going out to Capri. And there's also, for the wealthy, there's another port at Mergellina where you have more private charters that are going to Ischia. And all of the ferries go to the port of Ischia, but they don't all go to Forio, which is where I recommend you land. When you take the ferry directly to Forio, you are in a fantastic little village. You can walk to your hotel. You walk right into the town where there are shops and restaurants. And it's just this fantastic opportunity among all of these, very famous, very expensive and crowded places like Capri, the Amalfi Coast, where you can, as I always say, enjoy paradise for normal people. That is the biggest advantage of going to Ischia. You have the port of Ischia with the castle here, this little rock off of the main island, which we'll look at. Casa Micciola Terme is where you have a lot of hotels that have their own thermal spas. Forio, as I mentioned, is my favorite village of all. Sant'Angelo is the swankiest of all of them. You have beaches in between, and then the center of the island is a big, lush green mountain. It is actually an active volcano. And there are big holes in the history of Ischia because there was so much volcanic activity at certain points in time that it was uninhabitable. But people continue to come back because, of course, it is so beautiful and so lush and so fertile. But there are big swaths of Ischia that are just kind of wild and untamed, and where you have, very normal everyday life persisting that's not in the service of tourism. Um, and another reason, perhaps the main reason that I really recommend people go there, is that the island is a complete world. You have history, you have ancient history, Renaissance history, you have mythology, you have the hot springs, the whole culture of the thermal baths, which is both relaxing as well as therapeutic. You've got really Neapolitan food on the beach. You've got great pizza, spaghetti and clams, all that stuff. beautiful beaches and village life. And also, I would throw in you can do some very good hiking there as well. So, what's special about it? Like I said, I call it paradise for normal people. The hot springs are everywhere because the island is a volcano. You can't swing a cat without hitting a hot spring. There are thermal parks, which we'll talk about. Hotels have their own hot springs. There are just sort of wild hot springs that you can climb down into and get into on your own. Ischia is a very ancient place. Its original name was Pithecusa, and it's said to be the very first landing place of the Greek colonists, which seems crazy. It seems like it would be Sicily or Puglia, just given the geographic proximity from Greece. But no, those sailors seem to have first established the colony at Ischia and then moved into Naples. And they called their first colony at Naples Parthenope. Hence why I'm going to see the Parthenope show in Naples, named after the siren who cried so much after Odysseus sailed by her that her tears formed the Bay of Naples. And then later, the new city, Neapoli, which became Napoli. Um, Ischia's, oh, I didn't finish. I got so entranced by Greek mythology, I didn't finish what I was saying. Uh, another very special thing about it is that it is still a very laid back destination. It's the kind of place that is becoming so rare in Italy that you can just kind of roll up in. Like you should, if you're going in high season, of course you should be reserving a hotel, but you don't really need to make restaurant reservations aggressively, except maybe like the morning of when you're going to go. You don't have to. You don't need to make reservations for the thermal parks. They'll tell you we don't even take them. Just show up. If you show up in at the middle of the day, it's half price. And one of the major reasons that it's still very affordable and people just take the bus most places is that the majority of the tourists who go there are German, and Germans are cheap. And I'm not making fun of you Germans. In this case, it's a virtue. This is the favorite destination of Angela Merkel. And locals will always be very keen to tell you, especially taxi drivers, that when she became the Chancellor of Germany, she was very upset that she could not go to the family-run B&B that she was used to going to every single year because her security detail wasn't able to keep her safe there. But it is a place Germans appreciate a good hot spring and a value and a bargain. And so Ischia, you will see when you see signage in Ischia, you will almost always see signage in German. And they are really not very pretentious people at all. So it is very low key. That said, that is also one of Ischia's challenges. You can't make reservations for many things. So if you're somebody who really likes to have your itinerary planned, if the idea of winging it and seeing how it goes makes you anxious, then Ischia might be a bit of a challenge. I honestly actually don't think it will be a challenge. I think once you get there and you feel the energy, you feel an immediate switch and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But if you want to have things laid out well in advance, Ischia is not ideal. And I would just say there was very few challenges. I was really kind of racking my brain to think about them. Taxis are very expensive. It's a seasonal economy. These guys, have work for like 4 or 5 months out of the year. They're reaping well, they're making hay while the sun shines. So that's why most people take the bus. If you do need a taxi, just anticipate that will be the one thing that is quite expensive. So to talk a little bit about both mythology and geology, which very much go together because mythology explains natural phenomena. Monte Epomeo is the physical and spiritual center of the island. It's the green, lush mountain volcano at the center. And the legend that explains it is the legend of Tifeo, who is Typhon. And it's said that the giant is imprisoned beneath the island by the gods, and it's his restlessness that causes the volcanic activity and the bubbling of the thermal springs, which is such a fun idea to think about, or if you're traveling with kids, to share with them. And again, this is an active volcanic island. It is part of what's called the Phlegraean Volcanic District. So it's right next to the Campi Flegrei, which is west of Naples, where you have Baia, which is a very famous Roman resort in the first centuries BC and AD that is partially underwater now. And you can go visit that on a glass bottom boat tour, the area around Pozzuoli. there's been quite a few tremors in the past couple of years, so you may have heard about it on the news. There's also the island of Procida, and Vivara, which is uninhabited mostly. And so this is all sort of a volcanic archipelago. I always say to people, it's kind of like Hawaii. There we go. Okay. With that, there are some very natural places that you can check out on your own, especially if you enjoy nature and hiking. There's lots and lots of that on Ischia. On the Chitara Beach side of the island, which is closer to Forio and the Poseidon Gardens, which we'll talk about later, you have a volcanic sand beach, and people go and cook in the hot sand. And there's some people that kind of will make like a whole event out of it. They'll go like bury a chicken and like cook a whole chicken in the hot sand. It takes, quite a few hours, but the locals know exactly how long it takes. But you will see people just burying simpler things like eggs or potatoes, whatever they've brought with them. Maybe sometimes you'll see people make a frittata di spaghetti, which is like a spaghetti pie. And then they wrap it in foil. It's something that everybody takes to the beach. It's a way to eat like pasta with your hands. And you might see them like bury it in the sand so that it starts to warm up a little bit. And the sand itself is warm to the touch. And it's fantastic. One of the things that kind of makes me crazy about Ischia is that everybody I know there complains that the winter is long and everything is shut down in the winter. They have hot springs and hot beaches. They could totally have winter tourism if people would collaborate, but they don't. And they like to complain about the very long winters. But I would love to sit on that warm beach, like a heated blanket in the middle of February. Oh my God. There is also the Baia di Sorgetto, which is a cove that you can get to by boat. There's lots of boat tours that you can hop on when you're there in Ischia. Again, you don't really need to pre-plan it. There's always these little tourist desks near the port, in any of the towns, and you can just go and check the schedule and decide when you want to go and pay right there on the site. A lot of them go to this Baia di Sorgetto where the natural spring water bubbles up, and it's moderated. And one of the major reasons you have these thermal parks is in many places the water is so hot it's scalding, it would burn you, and so they have to be managed in the thermal parks. Do channel and appropriately cool the water so it's tolerable. But here, the natural cold salt water mediates the hot springs, and so there's no chairs, no towels. This is a completely natural experience. At night, this is where like local kids are hanging out, and it's so unique. There's absolutely nothing else like it that I'm aware of. There are hot springs throughout Italy because Italy has so many volcanoes, both active and expired. You have hot springs all the way from Sicily through the center of Italy, through Tuscany, into the Dolomites. But really, Ischia's are the best ones of all. So that spa culture is very much baked into the culture there. The Poseidon Gardens are the most famous of the thermal parks, and they're fantastic. I highly, highly recommend them. Even if you go to others, I think you should go to Poseidon. It was founded by Germans, hence it is very well organized. They also have many treatments available. They have massages, they have different I would say, like, they take a more therapeutic medical stance on their massages and their treatments than one of just purely relaxation. Spas in Italy, thermal springs are things that Italians really consider as medicinal. You will see, a lot of especially older folks going to Ischia or to other hot springs with their medical card because the Italian healthcare system pays for them to go to certain hot springs. Some are deemed better for blood pressure, others are deemed better for skin issues. And so a lot of people and the Italians that you will see in Ischia are very often going for specific treatments. They also all the big places like Poseidon make their own proprietary products with natural elements, so that might be something to take a look at as well. The thing I always say about Poseidon is bring a towel. They do have them for rent, but they make you walk to the complete opposite side of the facility, and then it's just this, like, big confusing thing to just get a towel, and that's because those Germans bring their own. They don't wanna pay extra for a towel. Negombo is the swankier one. It almost feels more like a lifestyle resort, and The spas are sort of terraced into the mountains. I have some photographs later in the presentation. But really, what's important to know about these thermal parks is that they also model the ancient Roman system. So if you were to go visit Baia, which you could do as a day trip from Ischia, I have done it. You get on the boat on the ferry from Forio or Porto, and you go to Pozzuoli. Then you gotta take a taxi, but it's very quick. It's like a 10-minute ride, less than that. And you go to the ancient Roman resort and you see their hot room, their cold room, the whole spa complex, and you realize it's terraced exactly like Poseidon and Nogombo. There's also the Nitrodi Spa, which is considered the oldest spa in the world. It's a spring that's in the woods in the middle of the mountain above the town of Buonopane. And there it's really a therapeutic experience. They don't have pools to sit in, they actually have showers. You also drink the water there. And it has a very trippy, fairy, cool energy vibe there. And I'll tell you more about that later. Also, many, many, many hotels have their own thermal pools. And it's a way of life. The Italian word for spa or springs are terme, just so you know, because you will see that everywhere. Um, okay, just a little bit of history. The deep history, as I mentioned before, is that of Pithecusa, one of the earliest Greek colonies in the Western Mediterranean. So it's the most ancient place, even more ancient than when we talk about ancient Italy. Often we're talking about ancient Rome, and this is much, much older. And then there are layers of inhabitation, again, with big gaps because of the volcanic activity on the island that periodically made it uninhabitable. The Greeks, then the Romans were there, but there was really the volcanic activity was intense throughout the Roman centuries, so not so much. Then you have the Aragonese dynasty that conquers Naples. The Aragonese come from Spain. They kick out the French, who are the dynastic rulers. You then have the Bourbon era in the 17 and the 1800s, and then the revitalization of Ischia in what I call the Dolce Vita era. Um, there is the Nestor Cup on Ischia that's in the teeny tiny little archaeological museum. I'll also show you a picture of it shortly. But it is one of the single oldest artifacts in Italy, which is saying something. Um, the volcanic activity kind of waxes and wanes throughout the Middle Ages, so there's different periods, but much of the medieval history has been sort of lost or needs to be excavated. The most important monument is the Castle of Ischia, and it is a rock that sits off the coast of the island itself. It's an encastellated village, so when we talk about a castle, it's not just a fairy tale castle, but it's actually a whole village that's within walls. And it sort of really took on a new life when it was conquered by Alfonso of Aragon, Alfonso V, who became Alfonso I of Naples. He establishes a Renaissance court there that comes into full flower and is most famous for the poetess Vittoria Colonna, who spent her childhood there, who was married to someone who had been raised there as well. And if you listen to episode 4, Vittoria Colonna had it all. We talk all about that story. I'll show you a link to that later on as well. The Dolce Vita revival is in the 1950s, post-war Italy, and so much of what we still seek as tourists when we go to Italy is the result of this period. Ischia was a very poor place, and a lot of Ischitani emigrated. In particular, they went to the far reaches of Brooklyn. They went to the end of Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, Gravesend. There's a few other pockets of Ischitani around the United States. There are also a lot in Venezuela, some in Brazil as well, but Brooklyn absorbed the majority of them. And I've recently, there's a Facebook group I'm in that has been sharing some pictures of Ischia, and it was really rough and rugged place. And then Angelo Rizzoli, the famous publisher, really kind of invented modern Ischia as a destination, of course, because it was so naturally beautiful. So he bought a property in the town of Lacco Ameno. He built the Regina Isabella, which is a 5-star hotel. It was a place where the literati would hang out because, of course, he was an important publisher, and he is the one who brought the international jet set there. So it's this time when Elizabeth Taylor, Sophia Loren are going to Capri, to Ischia, to the Amalfi Coast, and these places are becoming famous in the way that we know them as today. But they went to select places in Ischia, and the rest of the island was filled with little guest houses. And this is where middle class Neapolitan families went on vacation. And that is so well shown in My Brilliant Friend at the end of book one, and especially in book two, where a very fantastic drama all unfolds on Ischia. But there we see Nella, who's running a guest house, and Lenu goes and works for her. And the Sarratore family goes, and that's their summer vacation. So that's really how it developed for tourism. A glamorous place in Lago Ameno around select hotels, and then a place, the Jersey Shore, if you will, for Neapolitan families. And here's a picture of Angelo Rizzoli holding court there. And then you see the castle of Ischia on that rock with, of course, our wonderful Lila and Lenu. So I want to walk you through the towns so you have a sense of where you would stay if you were to plan a trip to Ischia. I recommend Forio. That's my number one recommendation because you can take the ferry directly there, get off, walk to your hotel, and it's a perfect village. It's everything you want an Italian village to be. It's easy to get to Poseidon. The bus runs right through there. You can get to the Città beach. You can get to the Mortella Gardens. Everything is within easy walking distance. Okay. Lago Ameno is where the world of the literati existed. Now, it's Angelo Rizzoli's house is actually now the archaeological museum. So you can go to that home, which is called Villa Arbusto, and you can see the Nestor Cup. You can also, if you're not staying at the Regina Isabella, because it is quite expensive, you can go have lunch there or go have a drink there at the bar because it does have that cool kind of 1950s glamour going on. And then everybody will point out the fungo, this mushroom shaped volcanic rock rising from the sea. I'm like, okay, that's cool. The tour guides really linger on it. I feel like I don't know what to say when they're just like, make you stare at it for a while. But there it is. That's the fungo. Sant'Angelo is the swankiest village of them all. There are no cars there. It's kind of on a promontory. You have to walk down, and then when you get to the village itself, there's all of these fancy little shops. So it's sort of connected by a land bridge, and it is a good base. If you want to get to the Moronti beach, and in general, beach access is very easy there, but it is definitely the swankiest of the towns. But I found this picture just as I was putting this presentation together before it was swanky in the 1950s. And I don't know, to me, the picture does capture the appeal it must have had in the 1950s as just this very rustic paradise, this place that seems so improbable to have been poor and barren as it was, and one that certainly had all the potential in the world. Casamicciola is where you find a lot of hotels, and where you have a lot of hotels that have their own hot springs. So if you want to stay in a hotel that's got their own springs, this is the spot. Some of them are nicer, some of them are a little more meh. People really go there for the specific curative treatments of the waters too. So some of them are just very functional. They're not like very vacationy. Um, I think, again, it's sort of important to remember that so many European tourists, Italian tourists, German tourists go to Ischia as, a trip that's like 2 or 3 hours away, not their big international Italian vacation. So there are some parts of Ischia that feel like they really just serve local tourism, versus, the full experience of traveling abroad. So I wanna kind of just run through a bunch of the things and places that I believe that you should prioritize on a trip to Ischia. Again, this is a place where you don't really need to make firm plans. You don't really need to make too many reservations. If you want to take a boat tour, go to the tourist office at the ports when you're there, make an appointment. You can also rent a car if you want. They have these old beat up cars that all have scratches on the side. Pretty inexpensive, between 60 and 100 euros for a couple of days. You can rent a scooter. If you wanna go on a hiking tour, there are a few local hiking guides that will take you. There's lots of maps that are available. It's, again, a place that's very laid back, but you should make a point to see some specific things. One is this Nestor Cup that I've mentioned quite a few times. And what makes it extraordinary, it's this little thing, is that it has this 3-line inscription that is a joke that claims to be the legendary cup of Nestor from Homer's Iliad. And it says that whoever drinks from it will become overcome with desire, horny for Aphrodite. And it is one of the oldest examples of writing in the Western world and one of the very first known literary references to Homer. So the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey movie, is coming out in July. Actually, just recorded a podcast about it yesterday that I'm working on editing right now. But you've got to go see the Nestor Cup in Angelo Rizzoli's house in Lago Ameno. It's this little thing, but it's a major piece of Western civilization. In the village of Forio, I love this humble little church, the Santa Maria del Soccorso, the fisherman's church, it's really referred to. And it's kind of looks like the Alamo. But southern Italy was Spanish for centuries and under the same crown of Spain that colonized the Americas. So that description is not that off. But it's kind of a pastiche. It was just repainted every once in a while. The white stucco kind of starts to chip off and it has to be repainted. There are inside all of these votives of ships. This is the place where you can imagine fishermen praying before they would go off on a long voyage, a place where their wives would be praying for them and their safety while they were out at sea. This place has a vibe. It has an energy, and it's a place where everybody goes in the evening for sunset. It is legitimately one of the very best places to watch sunset that you can imagine. The Aragonese Castle, there it is. It's a little rock, and you can see all the boats that are around it. You can see it is this encastellated village. And the story of how it exists right now is even more extraordinary. This was pretty much abandoned and completely fallen into ruin. And then in the 1920s, it was purchased by one guy for a lot of money, but not an extraordinary amount of money to purchase something like this. And his grandchildren still own it. So you can go visit now. They charge an entrance ticket. It's not very much. I want to say it's like between 10 and 12 euros to enter. It's very steep, but there is an elevator. The monastery, the convent that was inside is now a small hotel, nothing fancy, but really sweet. There's a little restaurant, there's a little cafe. And the family that's running it they're doing it for truth and beauty. There's always rumors that it will be sold, to some international resort chains. Thus far, thank God it hasn't happened. But it's a fantastic, immersive place to contemplate history, to walk around. And if you go with a specific idea in mind, whether it's to imagine the life of a nun living there, or imagine the life of just a normal, everyday person living within those walls, afraid to leave because of pirates or malaria or volcanic activity, or you want to go deep into the life of Vittoria Colonna, who lived there, you can see the church where she got married. It's completely destroyed, but there it is. And I love ruins. I love churches with the ceilings blown out. They're the most romantic ruins, in my opinion. Also, this whole castle is essentially carved out of tufa stone. So that in itself makes it quite remarkable. So this is an absolute must see, must experience visit when on Ischia. The Poseidon thermal gardens that I mentioned before, here is a picture of them. All of the big thermal parks, I should say, also include beach club access too. So if you would like to go to a proper Italian beach club where they give you a chair and they bring you food on the beach, you can have that experience as well. But of course, going to the different curative pools and relaxing is just absolute heaven. And again, if you go at like 3:00, it's half price. Not that expensive though. This is an aerial view of Nogombo. No photograph does these places any justice. This, just looks like a resort, like, well, not like Disney, but theme park-esque. But when you are there, all of the pools are just, terraced into the tufa, surrounded by very lush vegetation, very quiet. Should also say too, Italian beach culture is very chill. People go to the beach really to relax. You don't really see people like playing volleyball or blasting music. Some places here and there you will see that. But if there are Italians on that beach, they are sleeping, they are reading, they are very seriously getting a tan. They really regard it as a place to unwind. The Nitrodi spa in particular, I said, is up in the mountains and it's more curative. They have showers. You hose yourself off with this water. And the people that work there are very knowledgeable. They are really, I guess, practitioners. So if you do have particular health issues, you can even talk to them about that. They also have kind of an apothecary with different treatments, different creams that you can purchase. But I had a client, gosh, it was like 5 years ago now, who was trying to, she had basically a vision of hot springs that she was being called to go to, and she hired me to do a trip consultation because we were trying to figure out what she was receiving in this vision. I mean, it sounds, it was like a woo-woo trippy thing. But anyway, I got her to Ischia. I thought it was a different place, but turned out when she got there, it was Nitrodi, and she had this really intense experience there. Um, but as I mentioned before, it is considered to be the oldest spa in the world. It's tucked into the mountains, and they have these amazing friezes there. Now, these are reproductions. The originals are in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but they are friezes that show the nymphs who were believed to give the magical qualities, the healing qualities to this water that were believed to be there during Roman times. So this was a place where Romans would go. People would leave Rome specifically to go to Nitrodi, to go into this mountain, to drink the water and shower in the water of the nymphs. And the friezes that are there, like I said, are the reproductions. But if you look at the spouts where the water is actually coming from, it's the original Roman plumbing. And there's sort of like a glass case where the friezes are displayed. And if you just kind of peek your head in and you look down, you'll actually see the original spouts where all the water is coming from. It's such a unique experience. The La Mortella Gardens are a much more recent addition. They are a botanical garden that have that were created by a non-Italian. They have their own story, but they also have fantastic classical music performances, especially in the summer. So this is a place that actually has a functional website, unlike most places in Italy. And you can see the calendar of events going on. If you like gardens, if you like music, this is something that you should definitely go visit. Also, you can just walk through it. It's beautiful. And I want to just share a bunch of random fun things about Ischia before I then open this up for questions, and we can talk more specifically about hotels, how to get there, all of the technical things. But first, there is a now a growing pilgrimage of what's called the Madonna del Zaro. And in 1994, there was an apparition of the Virgin at this particular spot. It's close to Forio. You can walk there from the Moronti beach. And she was said to be there giving messages of peace. And so a lot of people go there now to commune with the Madonna del Zaro, to bring their own prayer. But I've been hearing about it more and more. There are very devout Catholics that go there. The person who told me about it is actually Jewish, but she's also kind of a Buddhist, and she sought it out because anything with the Divine Mother, she's like way into. I had not been aware of it before that, but I've been hearing more and more about it. The food on Ischia is Neapolitan food on vacation. I said that before. Neapolitan style pizza, spaghetti with clams, cones of fried fish. You can get a mix. You can get one that's like a mix of shrimp and calamari. The shrimp are different than the shrimp. They're prawns. They're smaller. And then my favorite is fried bacala, which is the codfish. That's dinner, that's lunch, that's a snack. I love, and it's so simple and it's so inexpensive. The local culture in Ischia, thank the Lord, is very much alive. Capri is a place that really clears itself out of locals because they all the Caprese rent their homes out on Airbnb. The ones who don't work in tourism and who aren't working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day during the high season, The rest rent their houses out and go, like, live with an aunt in Naples or Cilento or somewhere. And, there's not much local life, especially in high season. Ischia, you're gonna people are dropping their kids off at daycare, and, people say Naples is loud. Naples is not loud. Neapolitans are loud. And Ischia is filled with Neapolitans. The culture there is distinctly Neapolitan. So there's lots of screaming and honking. And even when you're on a quiet, if you're in a hotel that's sort of facing the beach, you'll hear the traffic zipping by. And you're like, this has got a Naples vibe. There's also a lot of Neapolitans who have bought houses there, bought summer houses there, and continue to vacation there. So that's, you know, I've heard some people complain about it. Hey, it's a real place, and thank God there's a place that's this famous, this accessible, and still vibrant with its local culture. And I recommend staying in a hotel or a guest house versus an Airbnb, because Airbnbs, you'll find houses and they're kind of in the hills, or they're in more kind of rural areas where you're going to need to rent a car. And I think it's so great to be able to just walk through town and walk by the church and get your cone of fried fish. And also, if you have a hotel that has a thermal spa in it, even better. And just take the bus. It's easy. Everybody uses it. There is the monastery hotel I mentioned inside the castle of Ischia. I think if you stay on the castle for more than a couple of days, it can be a bit isolating. But very unique, very monastic experience, of course. Um, there are now a growing number of very fancy 5-star resorts, places that are, 1,500 up to $6,000 a night. Uh, the resort experience, I mean, of course, we all love a resort, but my opinion is save your resort money for Capri or the Amalfi Coast, where you really need to stay in a nice place in order to have a nice experience. Ischia is paradise for normal people, and so go there to enjoy that unique, distinct experience. The last little bit of Ischia lore that I will share with you before I open this up for questions is this image of Santa Restituta, who is the patron saint of Lago Ameno, who is paraded around on her feast day covered in jewels. And it is a local Ischia-tani saying that I have heard people in Brooklyn say, which is, if you go out wearing too much jewelry, you look like Santa Restituta. What are you doing? You're going outside looking like Santa Restituta? So, I have 3 podcast episodes about Ischia that you can go back and listen to. The one that was most recent was just in March. That was a conversation with the author Susan Van Allen. And there we talk about Truman Capote's time on Ischia and the little pension that he used to stay at that's still there and is still a real pensione in the old world sense, still run by the same women who took care of Truman Capote. They were much younger then. That's a very, very special place. So listen to that episode. Episode 13 talks about spas in Rome and Baia as well as Ischia. And I talk about Nitrodi in particular. I made that episode after a visit to Nitrodi. And then the Vittoria Colonna episode that I mentioned earlier with my friend Rita. And that one has just the best plot twist ever. If you haven't listened to it, please do. And if you need my help, I am always available for trip consultations. It still says we can talk about Cilento because I recycled this from my Cilento deep dive. The deep dives are 1 year old. I started doing them on June 18th last year. But you can talk to me about anything, not just about Cilento, especially if you're overwhelmed, if you're at the beginning of your trip and you're just trying to figure out what you want to do and what you want to see. You can book a trip consultation, or if you would rather turn the planning over to me and my business partner, who's also my cousin, Ariana, who is based in Cilento, we can do that as well. So I am going to stop my screen share so I can now see your questions. Give me one moment to toggle back over there. All right. So if you have a question, please plunk it into the chat. I am going to scroll through. My screen is kind of blurry. I didn't realize that. I couldn't see you while I was talking. I was just talking to my dog Linu, who's right on the other side of my computer. Let's see. Nobita said we spent 5 days in Ischia thanks to Danielle's advice some years ago. No regrets. June is I'm going to Ischia in July and actually change my dates of travel in order to stay. Oh, the screen just moved. To stay at that pensione after hearing that podcast. Yes. Oh, that's so good. Yes, you should be excited. Dave says, if time isn't an issue and you are a person who likes to slow down, what's the right amount of time to really enjoy the island before you get restless? A week. I think you can stay a week very easily. Just take it easy. I mean, there's so many thermal parks to check out. There's just such an energy switch there, and especially coming from Naples, which is, so intense. And then you get there and you're like, oh, okay. And then, I think a week. And you can take a ferry from Ischia to Capri if you want to do a day trip there. You can go to the island of Procida instead, which I think is a better day trip. It's closer. You can also take a ferry to Pozzuoli and go do the ruins at Baia. You can do a boat ride. Um, just, I think like getting to Nitrodi, that's like a whole day unto itself. Yeah, at least a week. Do you visit Ischia after October and before March? I mean, really no, because everything is shut down. I mean, unless, I'm sure there's always somebody on Airbnb who's willing to rent you a place, but like restaurants are closed, people cook at home. And the most frustrating thing about me as somebody who plans travel is you never know exactly when everything's going to open in the spring. So, like, technically, the Italian travel world comes alive with Easter. So that can be either March or April. If it's an early Easter, then it might be iffy, but Easter generally is the opening. That's spring. But in Ischia, nobody like they literally it's like all the people that that run the big Poseidon and Agumbo, because they're the biggest thermal parks, they kind of set the tone, and they're owned by local people too. They just decide. They look at the weather and they decide when they're going to open. And I've been calling and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to plan a trip. Are you going to be open for Easter?" And they're like, "I don't know. We'll see. Vediamo." So yes, I don't go there in the off season. You could, but everything is closed. And the Schiatani, I'll say it's like a little bit depressing in the winter too, because everything's closed. And that's in all the tourist places. I hear people in Puglia and Cilento, everybody says that it gets, you know, depressing in the winter. But, Ischia could open up. They have hot water. Okay. What is the difference between the filtered and unfiltered spas? Some of the, they have different treatments or different, what's the word I'm looking for? Not treatments, like different temperatures are for different experiences. Like, they have like the cold plunge and then the hot water, and they have these like, what do they call them? They're called percorsi, like paths. But percorsi indicates more like a defined path that's going to give you a distinct outcome. So like this is going to be good for your blood pressure if you go like boop 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 in a certain order. So the ones that are filtered or unfiltered are the ones that are either managed, and then some are just really the natural water. Those tends to be the ones that are more for curative purposes, where you're getting the stuff directly from the source, not with the temperature moderated. Nubina says, for those considering Ischia this year, I highly recommend La Mortella Gardens. We spent a whole day there. Have you any thoughts on the wines at Ischia? We enjoyed the fact that they are based on vines brought from ancient Greece many eons ago. Yes, there's a lot of beautiful wine, white wine in particular, that grows in the center of the mountain. And there are places where you can go for wine tasting. The most well-known of all of them, which is very good, is called Casa d'Ambra, House of Amber. And there are many smaller ones. And again, being sort of an intensely local place, if you kind of chat with some of the cab drivers who all gather around the ports and you tell them that you want to go taste some wine, they'll be like, all right, I know a guy. They'll take you. They'll take you to some place up in the mountains. There'll usually be a dinner. Oh, I didn't mention one of the most famous things at Ischia as well is the rabbit stew. You have the coastal cuisine along the coast, of course, which is primarily seafood. And then you have the mountain culture where with all of these hills, you got a lot of bunnies, and there are these restaurants. There was one featured on the Stanley Tucci Naples episode, the very first one of that whole series, the one that he did right when COVID was going on, where you make a reservation. It's a communal table. You sit outside and, they murder the bunnies right before you're coming, and they're slow cooked and they're cooked with, and it's sauce of tomatoes and olives. It's a very distinct preparation. But that is definitely one of the things to do in Ischia is to go to a rabbit restaurant. Um, all right. Do you like the conillo stew? It's okay. It's not something I seek out just because rabbits are cute. I don't have a moral objection. I always say too, it's like it's such a sustainable meat. It's actually so much more responsible to eat rabbit than it is to eat, beef. But I don't know. The feet just remind me of my cat that I used to have. So this is a personal thing. I think it's delicious. It's organic. It's local. If you're into it, you should do it. Dave says, "Oh my God, sign me up for the stew." Also, what's the typical spa experience like? Is it like the beach clubs where you have all the details taken care of? Do you need to bring anything? What's an average visit like? No, it's not like the. It's so different from the beach club. I mean, it's really unlike anything else. Um, you go, they have lockers. You should bring a bathing suit. A lot of them also do require you to wear a bathing cap. Um, Poseidon will give you one when you come in, but a lot of people like to bring their own. Um, Even if you're bald, guys, they still ask you to wear it. And so you go in, you check your stuff, and it's like it's like a casino. You're in their world. And you walk around just wearing flip-flops in your bathing suit, and you go and a towel, and you go from pool to pool, and you do have to climb because everything is terraced. You can follow again percorsi. There are different paths that will tell you in which direction to go. Some of them are showers, some of them are pools to sit in. There's one in particular where they calibrate the temperature to this very I don't know what the temperature is because it's in centigrade and I don't remember numbers very well, but it's like as soon as I step into that pool, I fall asleep, which sounds dangerous to fall asleep in water, but I literally will just hook my arms over the outside and I fall asleep like a baby. Maybe it's amniotic fluid temperature. I don't know. And there's a restaurant inside that has like some pretty nice food. It's kind of served at Poseidon, it's cafeteria style. At Nagombo, it's more restaurant style, but it's like fresh vegetables, fish, like all very like nice, fresh island food. It's a full day experience, and then a lot of people will have made reservations to go get reflexology, to go get massages, maybe to get facials, to get particular skin treatments. A lot of people that suffer from acne will go for specific treatments. So those are appointments that you can make when you first get there. Um, Usually the best thing to do if you wanna do a massage or a treatment, you plan on spending the day is arrive, go make that appointment, and then go enjoy and relax until they tell you when to meet them at the spa. So, make a day of it is the thing. It's not just sort of it's not just like it's not like an experience of going to a spa where they've got, that spa music playing and everybody's like, "Doo doo doo," tiptoeing around you in service. It's more of a lifestyle wellness experience. Can you day trip to Naples based on Ischia? Is that a trip too far? Yeah, you can. The only reason I don't recommend it is just because it's such an energy shift, It's woo! But if you are, if you've been to Ischia before, if you know Naples well, you kinda know what to expect, then yeah, absolutely. It's like an hour on the ferry, so it's very easy, and then, when you get off at Naples, you're right in the center of Naples too, so it's easy t and there's now functional metro station right there at, um, the ferry port called Municipio, right by the Castel Nuovo, which I wrote my master's thesis on. I wanna do a deep dive on that someday, and, you can just hop on metro and go anywhere inside Naples if you want. Alright, sounds lovely, thank you for the deep dive, gotta roll. Hope you have a good time. And Venus says, "This has been great. Can you give some of those unable to travel to Italy this summer some more book recommendations, per favore?" You know what I'm reading right now? This is an old book. I'm gonna grab it off of my coffee table. Give me one second. Alright. I've gone back to this book, which I looked at ages ago, and I don't remember that well. It's called Celebrating Italy by Carol Field, who passed away a few years ago. It was written in the '90s. This is like cookbooks in the '90s were written with just, like, little drawings like this, but there was publishing houses were giving authors, like, good money to write cookbooks in the '90s, and there's so many fantastic I want to say at this point, they're like preservation documents about so many Italian traditions that are disappearing or have disappeared. But Carol Field did some serious research of going around Italy to capture all of these sagre, these food festivals, and these like all these unique festivals related to saints or the harvest and the unique food traditions that were built around those. So it's interesting to look through this book now and see the ones that have been lost and the ones that have still stuck around. It's a it was just kind of considered like a fun cookbook when it came out, but now I think it's a really important historical document. Um, so I'm getting lots of good ideas about things that I want to explore from this book. All right, Gail wrote. Oh, June asked any restaurant recommendations for Ischia. There is a pizzeria in Forio called Latinaya that I really like. It's really good Neapolitan style pizza. There's okay, this is not quite a restaurant, but this is one of my favorite places to eat. It's a bakery. It's called Dolce and Salato, sweet and salty, and it's in Forio. And it is just open like I think it opens at like 7 in the morning. It's probably closed by 3 or 4. It's a bakery, but they also have like a hot bar where they have almost like rotisserie style where you can like get food to go. But they make bakery style pizza, which is like just made on a giant sheet pan. And it just has simple tomato sauce and oregano on it. Doesn't even have cheese. I don't know what else. It's so freaking delicious. It's like you eat it and you're like, what is this? It's only 3 things. Why is it so good? And I feel like in the past, that was the thing about Italian food. You'd go to places and you'd be like, oh my God, this is so simple. Why is it so good? And so many restaurants, because of the tourist economy, have kind of given in to like the carbonara is so freaking rich now. Like everybody kind of like puts in way more fat and butter and everything else to make things just really super flavorful, like those giant sandwiches in Florence that no Florentine has ever eaten but have become ubiquitous now. There, when you go to places like this, like Dolce and Salato, which is totally just for like the guys who drive the garbage truck, you get that flavor. So go get the sheet pan pizza at Dolce and Salato. And then, for the nicer restaurants, the more upscale restaurants, they're all good. Like none of them are like, oh my God, amazing, the best meal of my life, but they're all good. And they're more about the view and the service, but the really delicious things, is like the fried fish and the very simple stuff. Do you have a book list on your Substack? No, this is Nobina's asking because I've done some Instagram videos about book recommendations. So I will actually put one together on Substack at some point soon, but I haven't done so yet. Gail said, thanks so much. I almost made it to Ischia this year from Naples, but I hadn't done enough prep. This deep dive helped so much. All right, good. Best gelato. I always have to apologize for my gelato recommendations. I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't eat a lot of gelato. I just suffer every once in a while and get like the Nocciola flavor, but like honestly, I don't have like deep intel on the video. But gelato and summer destinations go together. I don't, again, in a place that's not so over touristed, you don't have to worry about like the bad gelato. You have Italians holding them accountable. Most of the people that are there are still Italian, so they're not going to eat the bad stuff. Nobina says, I will look that up. Glad to see Stornone on your bookshelf. Yes, you'll see my bookshelf behind me. He is super. Happy trails. All right. Thank you, Nobina. You're always so supportive and encouraging. It's always great to see your comments. All right, it is about 9 o'clock. So this video will get published almost immediately and be available for replay. And then what I do actually is I make a transcript of this video. I then put it into Claude to help me organize it. And then I go back and I fill in everything that Claude messed up. But it does put together the structure for me. And then that is what I will publish next week as the official notes for the Ischia deep dive. So now that I've migrated everything to Substack, that's the way it will work. You'll have these live videos that are always going to be available for rewatch for paid subscribers, as well as the notes, which will live and continue to be updated. You probably saw this week, I took the Naples deep dive and I updated it because there was a couple of restaurants on there, one which I think actually went down in quality and one which closed altogether. So I've updated that information. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you when I get back from Italy. Have a good night.